Today we got a video that I've been really excited to make. This is going to be the first ride on this 2006 Harley Davidson Dyna. Here we go. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today is going to be the showcase of this 2006 Harley Davidson Super Glide. This was my dad's bike until he got into a motorcycle accident in 2024. I took it upon myself to fix it up and now it's finally in running order. In this video, I'm going to go over all the parts that I put on to get this bike looking superb and running superb as well. Come along for a nice ride, check out the bike, check out the roads. Let's get into it. So as I mentioned, this was my dad's motorcycle. He picked this bike up in 2021 for $7,000. He rode it for 3 years and this was his favorite bike that he had ever owned. He loved this bike. And so do I. When he picked it up, it had very few parts put on it. A few cosmetic parts, like this speedometer above the handlebars, and a different seat. Besides that, the bike was completely stock and only had about 4,000 miles on it, which is very low for a bike of that year. And since my dad bought this bike in 2021, we've doubled the amount of miles that were on it. It's sitting over 10,000 miles now. Be a good test to see how this does with the audio as far as picking up the bike sound and my voice. Coming from an off-road background, I was a bit skeptical of getting on this bike and hopping on the road. It took me a few years after my dad's motorcycle accident until I finally broke it out in the garage and started tearing it apart, ordering parts and upgrading it. I'm so glad that I did though. It's very rewarding to hop on this thing, and I know that my dad loves to see me ride it. Before I start getting into all the parts that I put on and explaining all the upgrades that I did, I want to just give you my first impressions of street bike riding versus dirt bike riding. So first of all, this Dyna feels so planted to the ground. It's such a satisfying feeling, cruising across the ground. It's smooth on the asphalt. It's supposed to be a good test to see how this camera angle and the point of view that I have going right now, see how everything works. So hopefully it's all going good. It really does give you a sense of freedom that you can only achieve by riding a Harley. It's one of a kind. If you haven't done it before, I recommend you go out and buy a bike, buy a helmet, ride safe, and enjoy your life. So that concludes the first impressions as well as the backstory of where we got this bike from. If you can't tell, I love this bike and I'm super passionate about it. Let's get on to the parts now. So after the accident, this thing sat in my garage in a mangled condition for about 2 years until I finally got the courage to start taking it apart. I started by taking the exhaust off, the broken levers, and all the broken parts, put them all on the bench, and I made a list of what I was going to need. I had no prior experience of working on street bikes or Harley Davidsons for that matter, but I knew it was something that I needed to do to make it right with my dad. With all the parts taken off the bike, I drained the fuel because the bike had been sitting for over 2 years and that gas had surely gone bad. I removed the battery, installed a brand new battery, and with new fuel and a new battery, the bike was ready to run. I went with a high performance battery which ran me about 150. So one of the very first parts that I ended up replacing was the air cleaner or the air intake on the right side of the bike. This had got completely crushed from the impact of the crash. I ended up ordering a black one that was aftermarket, and I'll include some photos of the before and after right here. I went with the Arlen S Smooth Stage 1 Big Sucker air cleaner. The reason I chose this one is for the style. I think it looked really cool. It's also supposed to elevate your engine's performance, and it also is supposed to change the sound of the intake. I picked this up for around $250. It's done its job of protecting the engine from dirt, as well as making the bike sound and perform the way that it should. Here's a quick clip from the first time I ever started the bike with the new intake and the new battery. Holy shit, that thing is so loud. Oh my god, but it started. Whoop whoop. Moving on to the next part. As you can see, the right side of the bike took a really big hit, which unfortunately dug up the exhaust really badly. I went with the Neighbor Hater exhaust slip-ons. For about $500, I was able to get some new exhaust mufflers on there and clean up the look of the bike and give it a fresh sound. I chose these mufflers because they were fairly affordable compared to a full exhaust system and a simple install that changed the sound of the bike. It was a win-win. While working on the exhaust, I decided to ditch those heat shields that come on the bike stock. I thought the blue on the exhaust made it look pretty cool, and the heat shields were pretty damaged from the crash. Took those off and continued on. Since the rear blinkers got destroyed during the accident, it was time for an integrated taillight system. I removed the stock taillight and installed this integrated taillight with blinkers built into it. Super stylish, and it's functional. This taillight was about $120, which I know is very expensive for a light, but it's definitely worth it. It changes the style of the bike. I highly recommend it. While I was at the back of the bike, I decided to change out the license plate holder. During the accident, that license plate holder got really damaged, and I went with an all black one to match the black design that I was going for. This cost me about $50. As you can tell, these parts are slowly adding up, and we're almost up to $1,000. To finish up the tail end of the bike, I removed the fender, brought it over to the workbench, and used a rubber mallet to bang that dent out. Once I had the dent banged out, I brought it over to my shop, and I had my favorite paint guy and bodywork guy do some work on the tail end of the bike and get that fender back to pristine condition. You should see it now. It looks completely mint. You would never be able to even tell that it was in an accident. When I originally brought the fender into the shop and showed the guy behind the counter, he was horrified and quoted me over $1,200 to do the fix on that fender. When I explained the story about how my dad got into a motorcycle accident and how I really just wanted to get this bike back into running condition and to a point where it looked really good, he felt for me and dropped the price down to $800. Still a lot of money, but for the style and for the fix, it was so worth it. I'm so happy that I did it. It looks great now. All right, let's move on to the next part. The next thing I did was I removed these struts on the subframe of the bike. They had gotten damaged during the accident and were completely mangled. Just like the heat shields on the exhaust, I removed them and I think they look better without it. This cost $0 and improved the look of the bike, so it was a win-win for me. The next thing I did was remove this rear foot peg for the passenger. The bolt had completely snapped off and there was no chance that I was going to be able to get a wrench on there. What I did was I took a Dremel and I was able to carve a straight line into it so that I could use a flathead to unthread the bolt. Once I got that removed, it cleaned up the look of the bike and it didn't have any broken parts on the rear end of the bike now. This bike was really trying to transform and I was really getting excited to see what it would look like when the project was finished. So this bike had already come a really long way, but one thing that was really bothering me was this huge scratch in the shock. It was unmissable. It was just an eyesore every time you looked at the bike. What I did was I went with these premium adjustable shocks and I got for about $500 from Drag Specialties. These shocks are 13 inches long, which is about an inch longer than the stock shocks on this Dyna. Gives you a little bit more travel in your suspension, makes the bike ride better, and also lifts the rear end of the bike up, which gives it a different look. So it looks cool and it's functional. Like I said, these were about $500, but if you ride dirt bikes and you ride motorcycles, you know just how important suspension is. So with that being said, I didn't feel bad making this purchase. I picked them up, installed them, and I've been super happy with how they've been holding up. And like the name suggests, they're fully adjustable, so you can make the shock longer or shorter and shorten the travel or increase the travel. It's just nice to have that adjustability. It makes it so you can change the characteristics of the bike, and I really like that option. And I also really like the black look of the shocks. I really was going for a black look on this Dyna, and I think they came out really well. And that brings us into our next part, which is these black 6-inch handlebar risers made by V-Factor. I picked these up and I wanted a little bit of a different curvature on the handlebars, and I also was worried that these bar mounts that were originally installed on the Dyna were bent from my dad's crash. When he hit the ground, I think that they bent the bar mounts, and I wanted to straighten them out and get some brand new ones on. So I did just that, and they're straight, they're taller, and they look cool, and they freshened up the look of the bike as well as the handling of the handlebars. So threw those on and was happy with those. Continuing to work on the front end of the bike, I decided that it was time to order some new blinkers so that I could get this thing inspected and actually have this bike be legal and safe to ride on the road. So I went with these very basic blinkers that I picked up from Dennis Kirk, and they're functional, they look cool, and they blend in with the bike. They match and they work. So as you can see, that blinker that was originally on the bike got destroyed in the accident, and as you can imagine, also did this right side front brake lever and the master cylinder for the front brake as well. It got pretty busted up, and yes, it was still functional, but it was pretty dangerous. If that were to ever lock up while you were riding, it would lock up your front brake, and that would just be bad news bears. So with that being said, I removed that and I installed a brand new front brake master cylinder, bled the line, new brake fluid, all that good stuff. And after that, I decided I'm gonna have to install all new chrome covers for the buttons, because the master cylinder that I got and the brake lever that I got only came in chrome. So with that being said, I removed all the black covers, ordered all chrome ones, and threw that on. And you can see in the video that we're watching right now, the chrome covers around the start button, the off button, the horn, the blinkers, it all came together really well, and it matches, and it's just a different look, and it's different from stock, and I'm really happy with how it came out. So boom, chrome on the handlebars. And then what I did was I removed this broken mirror from the right side, and you can see me smiling in the picture right there. And I also put a bolt through the mirror holder to eliminate that hole, and that is also what holds on the front brake lever. So I was able to find a bolt that fit that to fill the hole and hold the brake lever on. And it works, and it looks good. So I know the audio might have been a little bit low right there, but drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what bike you guys ride and your riding habits. So on to the next part. What I did next was this LED light, which was super sick. It has a super sick pattern. It was a bit expensive, coming in around $100 from DennisKirk.com. And I also threw on this black ring that goes around the light to hold it in place. I took off the chrome one and added the black one, and I'm really happy with how that came out. We got the LED and we got the black ring around the outside.
Hitting the roads on the Harley is definitely a different vibe than the dirt bike, but it's enjoyable for different reasons, and it's fun in different ways.
So yep, the bike's starting to take major transformation. It's starting to come a long way, and it really starting to make progress with this bike build.
Not gonna lie, I think the cool factor of the Harley is one of the things I like the most. The shiny chrome, just the style of the bike is what I like the most, I think. And then second is just the smooth feeling. Smooth throttle, smooth acceleration. Just feels nice to ride. Totally different from the dirt bike.
So this is another part that I ended up removing. This was the clamp to the fairing that my dad had installed about a year prior to his accident. He had a fairing that went around the lights and covered all the electrical in front of the triple clamps on the forks. It was really cool looking. but it was plastic, so it completely shattered in the accident, and all that was left was the bracket. So I took that off, saved it in the box so that if I ever choose to add a fairing, I have the hardware for it. But until then, we're just going to be rocking the no fairing look. I actually think it looks good without the fairing, but I would be open to adding a fairing, but they are quite expensive. But we'll leave that for an option down the line, and let's move on to the next part. And so, without a fairing to hide the wires, I had to come up with a way to clean up the wiring from these blinkers and all the other electrical parts that are mounted on the handlebars. So what I did was I went to Tractor Supply and I picked up these Velcro Wrap-It gadgets, and I was able to clean up the wires.
As you can see, I got my hack clipped onto the handlebars right here. Got very limited storage on this bike at the moment, and I am a little bit interested in possibly adding a saddlebag on the side. The reason that I haven't so far is because it's so expensive, and I put a lot of money into the bike, so I was simply just taking a break and putting money into it. And if we're going to be riding it with a lot of luggage, it would be nice to have a saddlebag. Obviously, I do have a backpack on right now. I don't know if you can see the straps on the camera, but I do have a backpack on. It's not bad, but the saddlebag will just be seamless luggage. Right now, having a backpack on, you do kind of feel it, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Besides that, I have the bike pretty much where I want it. Some people do get bothered by only having a mirror on one side. I've been just living with it, and it doesn't bother me too much. That right side mirror was ruined when I got the bike after my dad's accident. So with that being said, I could always get one, but like I said, I've been happy with this one. I'm loving the bike. 2006 Super Glide. Classic now. That's the issue with the gas tank. With it being dented and kind of angled the way that it is, I was unable to get a new gas tank that was OEM because they don't make them anymore. The only alternative is to find something on eBay that's used, and most of them are already pretty scratched up. That's why I figured I might as well just keep my dented one, throw this magnet bag over it, and hide the dent. Did a lot of creative hiding the accident with the build that I did on this bike, and a lot of parts went into this bike. Definitely would like to make a video just going over what I did to this bike one day. Drop a comment if you guys want to see that down below.
Did my own wiring. As you can see, I got wire nuts in there. Definitely should add some solder on there and tidy that up a little bit better, but it made me happy just to get it going, and I was able to ride it, so I literally don't care. It's still like that almost a year later, and I'm rocking it how it is. So with the mention of wiring right there and just being happy to be able to ride the bike, I was so hyped. I rode the bike to my boss's house, went to work, came back, and the bike wouldn't start. And after some troubleshooting, I decided that that was because of a bad regulator slash rectifier. They could be called either term. It's completely up to you, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it the regulator. So I ended up replacing the regulator, and I put a brand new one on, and the bike starts up every time now and works completely mint.
Looks like we got another motorcyclist behind me. Another one right here.
The new regulator cost me about $160, but this was no trade-off. Couldn't do without it because the bike literally wouldn't run without it. So threw that in, and I've been happy with that ever since. And let's get on to the next part, which is going to be these highway bars that I picked up from Dennis Kirk as well. I picked up a lot of these parts from Dennis Kirk, to be honest with you. It was just simple and easy to stick with one website. But I picked up these highway bars, and they came in black, and they were actually pretty affordable. considering that they were highway bars. The other highway bars in the market are super expensive. These ones came in at around $130, which fit my budget, and I really like the way that they look. I've always seen bikes with them and wasn't really sure what they were, but they're just cool style, and they also protect the bike if you were to ever tip them over. So you can see them down there above my foot. They're pretty much just bars that stick out on the side, and like I said, if you tip the bike over, it'll hold it up so you don't dent the gas tank. Which kind of brings me into my next part, which is this magnet bag that I got, and that is to cover up the big dent that's on the gas tank. And I was able to pick up this magnet bag for about $30 from Dennis Kirk, and then I went to Harbor Freight and I got some really heavy duty magnets to put inside of the bag to make sure that it holds itself onto the gas tank very strong. So I'll show the dents on the gas tank and the scratches on the gas tank. Like I said previously, the gas tank was impossible to find on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or any of those used parts websites. They don't make them anymore, so the only way that you're going to find them is if you get something used. But like I said, it was virtually impossible to find something that was in good enough condition to ride. So the magnet bag did the job for me, and you can see it's functional right there, and it covers up the dent. Not only does it cover up the dent and it looks cool, but I also am able to store some towels and other items in it, and I really like that. So I keep a towel in there, and when I go to the gas pump, if I spill some gas, I can wipe it up. Or if I wake up in the morning and I left the bike out overnight and it has some dew on it, I can wipe it down just to keep the bike clean and looking fresh. So another part that I installed to cover up some rust and dents on the bike was this front fender like tip cover that you can see in the picture right there. Believe it or not, that thing was $40, which is honestly really overpriced for the amount of part you get. It's such a small part, it should really be like $10, but it was $40, and it was kind of one of those parts that you couldn't go without because there was a big dent on the front fender, and without it, it was just really hard to look at without noticing that. So I took the hit of $40, bought it, and it had an adhesive that stuck right onto the fender and covered up the rust and the dent, and it came out pretty well. And it's one of those creative ways to just cover up the flaw of the bike. So I'm happy with how that came out, and let's see what else we have. We're nearing the end of the parts list and the end of the build.
So sick out here riding on the motorcycle.
And this build is actually never ending now that I think about it. We're always going to be adding things onto this bike, but for now, we're nearing the end of it. So let's see what we got left.
This is about the same setup for the camera that I used on the dirt bike. GoPro Hero 13 on the shoe mount, set up with the ultra wide lens, and put in the hyperview mode. Gives us the widest field of view, and we're shooting in 4K, 60 frames per second. This is my first time filming a motorcycle ride, so I'm super eager to see how it all comes out. Really excited to get this up for you guys. I'm really excited to show you this machine. So much more to it though. But yeah, it's a nice bike.
So for this next section, I just have some honorable mentions, which this is just going to be parts that I didn't necessarily buy, or they were already on the bike and I really like them. So what we have first is this backrest that my dad had previously installed. It's a passenger backrest, and I ended up just removing that because it got scratched during the accident. I do want to get that painted though, and then I can throw that back on so that my girlfriend Molly can ride on the back of the bike. I also need to get some foot pegs for her to be able to ride on the back, and maybe we'll have that ready for next summer. The next honorable mention is going to be this exhaust bracket that ties these exhaust mufflers together. The exhaust header had bent in such an extreme way that the bracket straight up just does not fit onto it anymore. And I tried to put the bracket into the vise and bend it back, but I just couldn't get it to bend. I tried heating it with the torch to bend it back, but I couldn't get it to go, and honestly, without it, it's completely fine. So I got that in the garage. I'm saving that, and if I am ever motivated, maybe I'll get it to work, but for now, it's just hanging out in the garage. And then another honorable mention is going to be this Cobra sticker that you can see on the gas tank right there. I threw that there just to cover up another dent in the gas tank from the accident, and it had some scratch paint right there, so like I said, I just threw that sticker there to cover that up.
Alright, there it was. That's the first ride on this Harley Davidson Dyna Super Glide. Would love to make some more videos about this thing.
Another honorable mention here is going to be this hat clip that I use. I just clip the hat right around the handlebars. Let me know down in the comment section if that's what you guys do. I thought that was a pretty original idea, and I've been doing that ever since. I don't know if that's a good thing to do in the videos. Maybe I should remove that for when I'm shooting the video because it's kind of distracting, but that's what I do, and I really like that. So I just had the idea to maybe talk about some parts that I would be interested in adding in the future. I definitely want to get a proper phone holder to mount onto the handlebars so that I can pull up my GPS. If I ever go on a long ride, it's really important to have a GPS, so definitely want to get a phone holder.
That's a little bit of a walk around of the bike. Cleaned it up pretty good. Definitely throw in some photos from the accident. I have a limited amount of photos from the accident because, if you can imagine, if you haven't been through it, when you're going through something traumatic like that, you really don't think to take photos of the bike. So I have a limited amount. I only really started taking photos once I started working on the bike. So I'll include what I have, and you guys get a little bit of a picture of where the thing comes from. But just being able to ride it is a blessing, and being able to still have my dad here is a blessing. So shout out to that.
Like I mentioned earlier in the video, it would be really cool to get some saddlebags on the sides of the bikes so that I don't have to wear a backpack. Take all that pressure off my shoulders and off my back while I'm riding. It's just so much more freeing when you're riding without a bag on your back. Yeah, I'm super happy with how the build came out.
Alright, y'all, well, I'm gonna hop on the highway, so I'm sure that I'll be able to even talk on the highway until I get an external mic set up on the inside of my helmet. Hopefully the audio works for the video so far. Hopefully the footage is good. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
What's up, everybody?
Hi, how are you?
Just finished up the video, and me and my dad are sitting here. Proof watching the video. Think it came out pretty good.
Yeah,
And I wanted to give a little update on how my dad's doing. So he is alive, doing well. What do we got a TBI from that accident. So we got a brain injury, but we're just happy to be living, and we're happy. We're living happy and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a little update on how he's doing. We're all doing good. We're loving life.
yeah,
And yeah, hope the video came out good. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If
yeah.
you did, drop a like, and we'll see you at the next one. We're going to be going to races soon. Got the Marshfield Fair race coming up.
Hey, wait.
Some Netro races coming up. So
plan to do all those and yeah, finish up the summer strong. So that's it. Drop a like, subscribe.
I love you guys. I love you guys.
We love all y'all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next one.
Hi.
Peace.